1, 2, 3, 4. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo, welcoming you to the Election Night Results Show special edition of TV on TV right here on Brookline Interactive Group. We've got a great show tonight, but before I tell you about it, if you haven't voted yet today, there is still just a few minutes of time. Get to the polls by 8 p.m. Your voice will be heard, your vote counted. If you are at all unsure about where your polling place is located, go to the website www.wheredoivotema.com to check your polling location before you head out. But don't dawdle, you've got just a few minutes to get in line by 8 p.m. Still here? Great. Stay tuned for Kathy Bisbee, the Executive Director of BIG, who will tell us about some exciting things happening right here at Brookline Interactive.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bisbee, Executive Director at Brookline Interactive Group. Thanks so much for watching. I've got a couple of things I want to talk to you about tonight. So at Brookline Interactive Group, we're a community media arts center. We have our roots in the foundation of community television, public educational and government access television. We're going to be 40 years old in 2025, in fact. But we don't want to rest on our laurels, and we don't want to keep doing the same old thing when we know that television is really changing. Media has really changed over the last 10 to 15 years. And in fact, the cable viewers that watch our local cable channels here in Brookline and beyond are watching more and more of that content online. They're watching it on streaming, they're watching it on Facebook, they're watching it on YouTube and Twitch. So we want to be where our viewers are, where our community is, and we want you to be making content that also will be distributed through all of those various media channels. You can be 8 or 80, and you can come in and learn how to make your own media content. You can be a part of a team. We've actually had 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds on the same team making a film, making a video, making some kind of communication that they want to put out into the world. So it's a place for everyone, and we're excited to have you come in this year and make media and learn more about BIG.
We've got a great TV on TV show tonight focused entirely on today's town election and its results. I'm going to tell you about the government positions and ballot questions on the ballot today. Sam Mintz from Brookline.News will give you a rundown on the competitive townwide races and ballot questions. We'll have a quick conversation with Congressman Auchincloss, time permitting, and I'll discuss what's new with hybrid meetings with Kathy Bisbee from Brookline Interactive Group and Town Administrator Chaz Carey. Most importantly, I'll tell you who won every single election today. And I'll interview each of the winning Select Board candidates live right here on Brookline Interactive. So don't touch that dial if you want to get the first reported results of every single race in town on this special broadcast of TV on TV. There are 142 Brookline citizens running for local office. 142 people who have put their name out there. People who are willing to put in the time to make our town better. 100 positions will be filled. 12 town-wide and 88 town meeting seats. Nearly every race is competitive. And we've got 4 ballot questions. I do love elections. To help folks get a taste of the responsibilities of each position on the ballot, last year we made our own Schoolhouse Rocks Meets the Sixth Floor, a primer on local government. Let's check it out. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo, and today we're going to talk about all of the elected positions in town government. Let's start inside Town Hall. The town clerk is elected to a 3-year term and serves several important roles for our town. The town clerk is the records keeper. The town clerk issues permits and licenses for things like dogs and marriages. The town clerk serves an administrative role on several boards and committees, including the Zoning Board of Appeal and town meeting. And perhaps most importantly for many of us, the town clerk manages our elections, not just the election in May, but every election we have in the town of Brookline. The Brookline Select Board are the leaders of the executive branch of town government. There are 5 select board members, each elected to offsetting 3-year terms. The Select Board is responsible for the hiring and firing of the town administrator and department heads, the execution of contracts, the appointment of members to boards, committees, and commissions, and the approval of a variety of licenses, such as the common victualer's license. As the name suggests, the Brookline School Committee is responsible for the Brookline Public Schools. Made up of 9 members elected to offsetting 3-year terms, the school committee is responsible for the hiring and firing of the superintendent, for pedagogy, and for determining exactly how to spend any monies allocated by federal, state, or local government. The 5 Brookline constables are elected to 3-year terms, and their role dates back to the colonial era. The primary responsibility of a constable is to post public notice for events like an upcoming town meeting or a polling location being moved. Another role of the constable is a process server, and that means that if a constable knocks on your door, they're not bringing you a Publishers Clearinghouse check, they're bringing you notice that you are being sued, subpoenaed, divorced, or evicted. Finally, in the event of a fracas in a public meeting or hearing, the chair of the committee may call upon a constable to remove the unruly party. The trustees of the public library serve as the Brookline Public Library's Board of Directors. There are 12 of them, 4 elected each year to offsetting 3-year terms, and their role is to manage the policies and procedures of Brookline's public libraries, as well as to hire its executive director. We're here at 90 Longwood Avenue, the headquarters for the Brookline Housing Authority. Now, the Brookline Housing Authority has 5 members. 1 is appointed by the governor. The other 4 are elected by people in Brookline. 1 of the 5 must be a resident of the Brookline Housing Authority. And this board is responsible for managing and maintaining all Brookline Housing Authority properties, which provide safe, affordable housing for low and moderate income people, including seniors, the disabled, and families. The town meeting is Brookline's legislature. Made up of 255 members, it is 15 residents from each of Brookline's 17 precincts, typically elected 5 at a time in each precinct. On elections following the decennial census, all 15 town meeting members can be up at once. Brookline's town meeting is responsible for the annual appropriation, the budget, as well as passing laws and regulations related to land use, development, or other behavior in town. When in person, Brookline's town meeting meets right here in the Brookline High School auditorium. The moderator is elected to a 3-year term and serves several important roles. The most obvious is to moderate the town meeting itself. The moderator holds the gavel and controls the agenda, determining the order of speakers, whether or not a question is germane or appropriate, and counting the vote itself. The moderator has 2 other important roles as well. In the run-up to town meeting, it is the moderator who determines which proposed amendments are deemed in scope, as well as determining the agenda for each night of the town meeting. Finally, the moderator appoints members to several boards and committees, most notably the town's advisory committee. In addition to the candidates on the ballot, there are 4 ballot questions on today's ballot, including a 2-parter. We'll go now to a primer on ballot questions filmed last week at the State House. There are 3 kinds of local ballot questions on the ballot this year, and I'd like to explain how each of them work. Question 1 on this year's ballot, the Pierce question, is a debt exclusion. Requiring a simple majority to pass, A debt exclusion is used to fund a specific capital project with a temporary tax increase. A yes vote for question 1 will authorize the town of Brookline to float bonds to pay for the reconstruction of Pierce School. If passed, tax collections will go up by exactly the amount necessary to pay each year of the bond. And when the bond is paid, the taxes will go back down again. Questions 2A and 2B on today's ballot are operating override questions. Requiring a simple majority to pass, an operating override authorizes a permanent increase in taxes to fund ongoing town expenses. Note that the structure of the operating override questions this year are such that if question 2B passes, everything in 2A will be funded as well as the additional item in 2B. Question 3 is a local ballot question unrelated to tax levies and passes with a simple majority. And we're back. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo, and you're watching the Election Night Results Show, a special production of TV on TV, right here on Brookline Interactive. We've had quick tutorials on both elected positions and the ballot questions. And before we go to Congressman Auchincloss, I'd like to dig a little deeper on the competitive townwide races, both for the candidates and for the competitive ballot questions. And to help us with that, we've got Sam Mintz, the editor-in-chief of Brookline.News, who was kind enough to pre-record a brief piece for us about those competitive races.
Hi, I'm Sam Mintz. I'm the editor of Brookline.News, a new nonprofit news outlet here in Brookline. After months of fundraising and building infrastructure for a website and for a newsletter by a group of business people and journalists here in town, we launched about 3 weeks ago. I was brought on as the first employee and for now the only employee of Brookline.News. And I'm really excited to be diving into covering politics, government, business, arts, culture, schools here in Brookline. To read our coverage, you can visit Brookline.News. That's our URL, Brookline.News. And we'll have a newsletter, and we're launching a website later in May. And we'll be sharing the election results on May 2nd. So I hope you'll sign up, and I hope you'll read our coverage. So the first choice on the ballot for this year's election in Brookline is for the Select Board. There are 3 candidates running for 2 open positions. The Select Board is the town's executive branch, which does things like hiring leaders like the town administrator or the police chief, approving business licenses, and implementing policies put forward by town meeting. So the first candidate is John Van Scoyak, who's the incumbent running for re-election. He's been on the Select Board since 2020. Prior to that, he was a longtime journalist at NECN and WGBH, and he also served as a town meeting member in Brookline. So there are 2 other candidates running for the open seats on Select Board. One is Arden Reamer. She's been a town meeting member since 2021 in Precinct 8. She previously worked at the Massachusetts Office for Administration and Finance. The other candidate for Select Board is Paul Warren. He's a town meeting member in Precinct 1 and also a past member of Brookline's Advisory Committee. His professional career has included roles in business, technology, and strategic planning. So next up is the election for 1 seat on the school committee. It's a 1-year term to be the 9th member of the school committee. Currently, there are 8 members and there's 1 open seat for a 1-year term. The first candidate is Natalia Linos. She's a town meeting member and she's also chair of the town's Advisory Council on Public Health. And in her professional life, Linos is an epidemiologist and she's the executive director of the FXB Center for Health and Human Rights at Harvard University. The other candidate for school committee is Christopher Muddy, who's a rugby coach, a former educator, and a stay-at-home parent of 2 who lives in Brookline. Both of the candidates, Linos and Muddy, have children in the Brookline public school system. The third competitive townwide race is for the Brookline Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. There are 2 candidates. The incumbent is Susan Cohen. She has served 1 term previously on the board, and she's running for a 2nd term. She's an experienced housing lawyer who works as general counsel at the Cambridge Housing Authority, and previously she ran her own law firm working on affordable housing issues. Her opponent is Kimberly Richardson, who's a social worker and also a tenant of public housing in Brookline. And in her professional life, Richardson is the judicial secretary at the Boston Municipal Court in Roxbury. There are also 3 ballot questions being put to voters on the May 2nd ballot. Question 1 is a debt exclusion for the rebuilding of the Pierce School. The town is essentially asking voters to accept an increase in their property taxes in order to pay for the project to rebuild Pierce, which is a K-8 school in Brookline Village. The exact amount of the tax increase is still up in the air based on a bunch of different factors, but there's a calculator on the town's website where residents could see the estimated impacts on their own tax bills. The next ballot question is question 2, which has 2 parts. Question 2A is the main operating override. So here again, the town is asking voters to approve a property tax increase of about 4.2% to help pay for the town's growing operating expenses. The tax increase would send about $11.98 million in revenue to the town, which it would use to fill gaps at both the schools and in other municipal departments. Again, you can find more on the town's website, including the same calculator I mentioned and information about where that money would be going. Now, there's a second piece of the question, question 2B, which would include the same tax increase as question 2A, that's $11.98 million total revenue, but it would also add on $1.8 million to fund a municipal compost collection service. So now if 2B passes, or if both 2A and 2B passes, the total revenue for the town would be $13.8 million, including that composting fee. If just question 2A passes, but not question 2B, the total would be $11.98 million without the compost fee. The final ballot question at the May 2nd election is question 3. Question 3 is proposing to cap the number of retail marijuana stores in Brookline at 4. Currently, the limit on how many of those stores can operate in town is 20% of the number of liquor license for off-premises alcohol consumption, so essentially liquor stores in Brookline. So because of that, the current cap on marijuana stores in Brookline is 5. This question would put a hard cap of 4 so that, and there are in fact 4 marijuana stores currently in Brookline, so it would not allow any further licenses for retail marijuana stores in town. Voters in each precinct will also have town meeting members on their ballot. Town meeting is the legislative body of Brookline's government, and each precinct will send a number of people. Sometimes, usually it's 5, but sometimes it can be a couple more depending on the specific circumstances of the precinct, but usually 5 on the ballot each year. And so you'll have the opportunity to vote for those people in your specific precinct. So that's everything you need to know about what's on the ballot. If it's before 8 p.m., you can still get in line to vote. You have until 8 p.m. to get in line to vote tonight, Tuesday, May 2nd. So with that, I will send it back to Tommy Vitolo in the studio.
Thank you, Sam, for your efforts. Next up, I'm excited to talk with Congressman Auchincloss, who represents Brookline and several other communities in the 4th Congressional District. Congressman Auchincloss, thanks for being on the show today.
Good evening, Representative. Nice to be with you as always.
It's a real pleasure to have you here. I know you're very busy with your work, but I wanted to take a few minutes and hear from you about some of the efforts you've taken to protect our democracy through elections, through democracy reform, through protection. Tell us what you've been up to.
2 things. First of all, last term, the 117th Congress, which infamously began with an insurrection on January 6th, 2021, ended with the passage of the Bipartisan Electoral Count Act reform. And what Electoral Count Act reform does is, 1, precisely close the loophole that Trump tried to exploit on January 6th by claiming that the vice president's role was not just ministerial, but in fact had real power and substance behind it in the tabulation of the electoral votes, and also tried to get alternative slates of electors from the states to present themselves as being the popularly chosen electors. The Electoral Count Act reform closes those loopholes, makes clear, 1, vice president is there to open the ballots, not there to offer their opinion on the outcome of those ballots. 2, that governors or other constitutionally designated officers in all 50 states are the ones who send the slates of electors to Congress to be tabulated, and that state legislatures cannot override those because, they're under political pressure. And also it provides for very fast and clear judicial review from aggrieved presidential candidates if states do try to deprive them of popularly won electoral votes. All of these things taken together basically are the consensus retroactive review of what happened on the lead up to January 6th, and saying, how do we tighten this federal system that we have where each of the 50 states runs their own elections. The federal government does not run any election. It's the 50 states that do it. They run their own elections, but now we have to send them to Congress to be tabulated. So big stride there, and a really important accomplishment to help heal our democracy after the depredations of the Trump years. That's number one. Number two is I'm a member of the Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. And as you might imagine, there's a whole host of domains that we're investigating, military, economic, ideological, about how we compete with our near-peer adversary, the Chinese Communist Party. One thing that I have consistently put forward is that Xi Jinping's best day in office was January 6th, 2021. That ultimately the way that we are going to outcompete the Chinese Communist Party, a political entity with whom we do not share core values, is by strengthening our democracy and rule of law here at home. I don't care how fancy and well thought out our strategy is. If we cannot have free and fair elections, we do not win the 21st century. And I think my Republican colleagues need to hear that consistently through the lens of competition with the CCP, which is an issue that so many in Congress are animated by.
And so the law that was passed was focused on taking the outcomes at the ballot box and making sure that they were reflected in our choice for president. There's still an awful lot of room between the run-up to Election Day and what we'll say is 8 p.m. on election night or thereafter, the counting. And so are you working, or is anyone else working on making sure that all the people who are eligible to vote, who are legally eligible, are able to do so, as well as keeping an eye on those who ought not be voting? I think that's overstated and a boogeyman. Nevertheless, we've got to get the votes in. We've got to get them counted. We've got to make sure that's happening in all 50 states, right? We've got Massachusetts has signed on to this, the compact, to make the presidential election a popular vote. Well, if other states aren't counting their presidential votes completely and correctly, that creates some questions too. And so where is Congress on that hyper-partisan issue of counting votes correctly?
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that point, because I think we have to start at a place of saying this country has secure elections. And one of the things that was most toxic and frustrating about the Trump denials of the election is that, in fact, one of the great strengths of our democracy over the last 250 years is that we actually do count ballots overall very effectively. There is not widespread voter fraud or systemic abuse of the voting system. Now, having said that, we really want to make progress on 4 separate areas. One is voter registration. Number 2 is casting a ballot, the act of casting a ballot. Number 3 is how we count the ballots. And number 4 is the cybersecurity and the physical security of our election infrastructure. And I know you describe it as hyper-partisan. There is actually a lot of bipartisan consensus in Washington on things that the federal government could do in terms of standard setting and then funding and technical support to get states to race to the top in those 4 areas. So, for example, for voter registration, we need automatic voter registration in all 50 states in the country, and we really should be outlawing voter caging, which is this really malicious practice by which usually it's outside groups will send a lot of spam mail, direct mail, to people's addresses and then claim because that it was returned that there no longer should be valid to be registered to vote. That really is a nefarious practice that all states should be outlawing. We need to allow for early voting for at least a week before Election Day and across all 50 states. Again, the federal government can set standards and use funding and support to get and induce more states to do that. In terms of casting the ballot, we want to make the timing of that appropriate so that everyone has access to the ballot box, and also do audits, to your point. retroactively so that people have confidence in the integrity of the election system, that every ballot was cast and done so by secure mail where it was done by absentee. And then finally, cyber and physical security. Unfortunately, cyber attacks against our election infrastructure are not just a possibility, but frankly, a likelihood in the years to come. And we made a lot of progress under the Federal Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency in funding critical municipal and state level infrastructure, but we have more work to do and more funds to send.
And the last thing I want to just check in with, we were going to do a separate interview, but time's not going to squeeze out. So I want to bring it up. How has Washington changed, and how does Washington imagine helping states and local governments change with respect to switching to a hybrid world, which requires infrastructure, which requires technology, and requires training, so that when we're doing the government's work, we're doing so in a way that has the benefits of in-person for those who are able to be in person, as well as the benefits of virtual for those who can't be in person. Is there question? Part one is, how are you all doing with that in Washington? And part two is, you're going to help us out in the states and the municipalities get there.
Congress is back to full in-person, as I think it should be. I think that's the appropriate way for Congress to run in a business where interpersonal connections and the bump factor is so important. And committee hearings really are better when they're in person than when they are in Zoom, in my experience. In terms of how the federal agencies are operating, I really judge them by their responsiveness and constituent services. I will say that I've seen instances, and I've pressed on them, where I thought that the fact that these federal agencies were operating still mostly remotely was hindering their ability to provide the services that my constituents expect and deserve. I saw that in the last couple of years with Veterans Affairs in particular, where access to the National Archives was being limited by remote work, and that made it so that veterans were not getting the benefits they needed. I didn't think that was acceptable. I think people need to be where they need to be to do their job, particularly when the taxpayers are funding that job and they owe them something. But I think we're now entering a place where people are figuring out the right balance. And I've seen that in particular with healthcare, which is actually one of the few silver linings from COVID, has been the rapid adoption and dissemination of telehealth services, a technology that obviously really existed for years pre-COVID, but for mental health and other indications has had a lot of widespread adoption and pretty strong efficacy.
Congressman, I want to thank you for all of your help in Brookline and in the district, as well as in the country. As you know, we partner all the time, particularly with constituent service issues, and your staff is second to none in terms of helping individuals when and where they need help, if that's even possible. And so I'm grateful that you were able to come on Brookline Interactive this evening. I know you've got a few more things to check off here on your to-do list tonight, but thanks for coming on the show.
Always good to be with you, Tommy. Take care.
Be well. And so we do have a few more minutes, and we brought up hybrid. I want to spend a few minutes thinking about that, and then we're going to go to Kathy Bisbee and Chaz Carey to talk about it for just a minute. Hybrid's been a word we've talked about a lot, and the intent of hybrid is to get the best of both worlds: the fidelity of an in-person meeting and the added flexibility gained by bringing people together virtually. The challenges, however, are significant, and they're technical, cultural, and legal. With respect to town meeting, the story is even more complex. Beginning with the spring of 2020, towns with representative town meeting had the option of having their town meeting either all in person or all virtual, but not hybrid. The rationale was that hybrid was complex and we should walk before we run. Brookline filed a home rule petition asking the legislature to let our community's town meeting meet in a hybrid manner, a request that I worked hard to explain and justify to my colleagues. Fortunately, I found more success than I bargained for. In a law signed a month ago, hybrid representative town meeting was legalized through mid-2025. Town meeting will be held later this month and will be fully in person because neither the technology nor the procedures for hybrid could be fully in place on time. November 2023, that's a different story. And it's a story I want to be told. So let's go now to Kathy Bisbee, the executive director of BIG, and to Chaz Carey, Brookline's town administrator, so we can talk about hybrid's role in our community of Brookline going forward. How are we doing tonight?
I'm well, Representative. How are you?
Let's try this piece. There we go.
Hello, Tommy.
I'm so glad you can be with us this evening. We mentioned hybrid briefly with the Congressman, and I want to talk about it a little bit. You both have very important roles. Chaz, on my left, you've got to get the government at full speed. And Kathy, on my right, you've got to provide not just the technology, but the operational support to make that work at every meeting with every piece of equipment. And well, how's that going? Chaz, what are we thinking about as we're coming out of COVID? Are we ready to have meetings that are a hybrid of in-person and virtual doing the public's business?
Well, fortunately, thanks to the diligent efforts of BIG and Kathy's team, the entire team at BIG, as well as Devin Fields, the assistant town administrator for operations, and the entire IT department led by Feng Yang, just an incredible effort. Town hall and a lot of the town meeting areas are wired to go fully hybrid. So hybrid meetings can be held seamlessly and painlessly in many different locations across municipal Brookline. And it's very exciting so that the business of the community can be seen and participated in by folks regardless of where they are. Town meeting is going to be tougher, right? Town meeting is traditionally held at the high school. The high school is not currently wired for hybrid work, and it's in use currently. Graduation is right before town meeting. So we have a lot of work ahead of us this summer and into the fall to be ready at the special town meeting scheduled in mid-fall for hybrid efforts. I can let Kathy talk to some of the specifics, but again, that team of the BIG team, the operations team here led by Devin, the public buildings team led by Charlie Simmons, and the IT team are really going to be working hand in hand to ensure that we get all the equipment we need and we get it installed and tested in time for town meeting in the fall.
Now, Kathy, we're talking about what, a couple of Logitech webcams and maybe two tin cans and some string, right? This is straightforward and easy.
Yeah, two tin cans. Let me show you really quick. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Adam, we have that up. So I had staff help me put together a description that's a visual description, and hopefully viewers can see this. It is a very complex system. We spent about 2 years getting all of this together, thanks to the support of the town. Thank you so much to the town administrator, Chaz Carey here, and Devin Fields, and the entire IT team at the town of Brookline. We could not have done this without everyone's full cooperation and communication all of the time about everything. It's really taken a lot. We have, in fact, this system that you're watching us on Zoom in the television studio, and we're coming in on Zoom, is exactly what we've set up around town. So at all of these locations, we have basically a very high-tech version of an owl. So the prosumer professional grade level connectivity is what we've spent the last 2 years really developing. So we're really excited about this summer. We've got a whole new system going in at BIG as well, because we have an aging server that we had a few bumps with tonight, in fact, that we're going to replace. And these hybrid expenses, certainly I know the town has been very supportive, but we want to continue to make sure that we can fund the next step in hybridizing the auditorium. We did just 2 weeks ago during spring break. Eric Sack, I want to give him so much credit, all the credit for this work, with the help of Antice previously, and also Rob Gelber as contractors who helped us to do this work. But this is a huge system, and we would not have been able to do it without so much support and so much teamwork as a town. And I
I think that we're going to be able to do some really cool things. If you look at this chart, we've got the industrial kitchen even going to be hooked up over at Brookline High School after the auditorium and after our hybrid meeting is successful in the fall.
And so Chaz, we've got plans, or we've implemented plans for a number of rooms in our town buildings, the town hall and some other buildings. Should we expect that boards, committees, and commissions are going to move to hybrid over the coming months, even though we passed a law that allows them to be fully virtual up through 2025?
Yes, I think the overwhelming majority of folks are in favor of having a physical space for people to congregate so that they are able to be in person and have those discussions. It's going to be a new experience. We were the first kind of major efforts on that came from the American Rescue Plan Act Committee, which was a source of a lot of community dialogue and discussion. And we were able to have meetings where people were in a large room, but participating with people who were virtual. The system in place, actually, these cameras can track people's movements, can identify individual speakers, and it really is very impressive to see the way that technology has advanced so that as seamlessly as possible, people in the room can have an actual conversation with people out of the room and not have it be sort of a stilted, waiting for the lag. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be issues. There's going to be efforts to adjust technologically that we're going to need to make. But again, we have some of the greatest and most diligent people working on these issues, and I'm really excited to demonstrate over the next couple of years that this temporary authorization, I think, will demonstrate the basis for permanent rules and regulations regarding hybrid meetings.
Now, Kathy, Big has been putting tremendous amount of staffing into select board hearings, into school committee meetings, into all virtual town meeting. Are you going to be staffing the tree planting committee? How are we going to manage there's so many meetings that happen. Some of them get a lot of attention. Others are very important, but get less attention. How are we going to, what's Big's role in helping the meetings, big and small, come off without a hitch?
I mean, I think one of the most innovative things that has come out of great needs during the pandemic that we were able to serve, but really has tripled the amount of work at Big in terms of coverage of meetings. And we haven't covered a tree planting meeting yet, but we have been covering things like making sure that the ARPA subcommittee meetings got on, and that was through a staff member doing a Dropbox and us then spending the staff time to get that content up as quickly as possible so that the community could be able to access that content after the fact. But we are expanding our staff to be able to have live streaming folks on site at meetings to provide technical support. We're going to be working with the town to come up with the parameters of who is going to do what and how we manage that and how we fund that staffing need as we get more and more requests. And we have already had meetings in the basement, downstairs rooms, actually 102 and 103, I believe. They have these D10 units, which folks can actually use a touch screen. They can schedule their Zoom meeting in advance and they can go in and that meeting's already ready to go. And it can also go live on the cable channels, on live streaming, if we know in advance. But it does take staff time to do that, certainly. And I think I feel really confident that the town administrator and I are going to figure out how we can make that work and also how Big can be using the community resources we have. We are looking for volunteers to become documenters to come work with us in our new project, civicbrookline.org, that will be documenting town meetings so that we don't have just a 4-hour meeting to watch. We actually have indexed links that people can just watch public comment, for example. And we have the capacity to do that. We just need the staffing and the time to do that. We may be using volunteers to do some of that in the future.
Kathy, you mentioned ARPA money, so this is the last question, and either of you should jump in. Look, we've got ballot question 1 and ballot question 2 are both money questions. We talked about technology, we talked about staffing. What's the bottom line? What does this cost, and whose pot of money is paying for it?
It costs a lot of money is the short answer. We're talking, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. on the outer edges, close to $500,000 potentially. But I don't think we're going to hit that level. But it is pretty significant, the amount that goes in. Some of this obviously is borne by big, but a lot of it is borne by the town too. And this is why it's really important, as Kathy said, for us to develop over the course of this spring and summer, a effective relationship that ensures that the roles and funding sources are laid out appropriately. As I said in the ARPA process, the hope is always with this federal money that maybe you find some quarters under the seat cushions and that defrays some of the costs. But ARPA is not a long-term solution to our problems. ARPA is meant to be a Band-Aid. It's meant to be a patch to get us through pandemic-related trouble. So we really need to start thinking about a world after ARPA, and that's a big part of the work that Kathy and I need to do together to make sure that we have a working document that lays out our relationship and our mutual roles and responsibilities. And when in our copious amounts of free time, Kathy, I know you and I will make that a priority in the coming months.
Well, look, a functioning local democracy is the fundamental infrastructure to our American way of life. This is definitely part of that. I'm delighted that you're giving it the attention and, frankly, the funding that it needs. And so thank you for all of that work. There will be hiccups along the way, but we're going to keep working at it and know that you've got partners at the state and federal level. So Chaz Carey, Executive Director, Kathy Bisbee, Executive Director of Brookline Interactive Group, Chaz Carey, Town Administrator, but you could swap for a day once in a while.
I was going to say, I got promoted. Wow.
That'd be fun.
Swap for a day once in a while anyway. Thank you so much for being on the show. But let's be honest, you're the appetizers. The main course is coming. And so thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're coming back with some results. Stay tuned. We are back and we have results. This is the good stuff. We're going to start with the races that we already knew the results. We're going to start with the races that were not competitive. And to do that, we're going to go first to school committee 3-year. Of course, there are 3 people who run each year, and there were only 3 candidates. All 3 won. These are not their vote totals. They got more than 0 votes. But congratulations to incumbents who have been working on the school committee and will continue to do so. Suzanne Fetterspiel, Andy Liu, and Mariah Nebrega. Those are 3 of the school committee members we elect this election. We're not going to know the 4th for a while. We need to get every precinct in before we can call that. But school committee 3-year isn't the only race that we have results for, because it's not the only race where folks ran unopposed. I want to go to the library trustees. Of course, there are 12. We elect 4 each year. Some of them are mysterious, apparently. Chris Janusulkit, Karen Livingston, and Jonathan Margolis, all incumbent library trustees, all in the Witness Protection Program. And Marissa Vogt, newcomer, who pulled papers and ran unopposed. All 4 are our new our library trustees. 1 new, 3 pre-existing. Congratulations to all 4 of you. There was also a 1-year special election for library trustee, and there was only 1 person on the ballot. And so congratulations also to Judith Goldman, who will serve just 1 year as a library trustee. And if it's for her, she can run again next year. And if it's for the voters, she can serve another 3 years beginning next year. Judith, congratulations and thank you for your service upcoming for library trustee. Precinct 16 also did not have a competitive race for town meeting. In fact, it was a little bit unusual. There were only 4 people running for the 5 seats. At least there were only 4 on the ballot. So let's take a look at that.
Nope, that's 17.
That's 17. Precinct 16, we have results. And sure enough, all 4 folks on the ballot were successful. Judy Leitner, Deb Abner, David Day, and Michael Harrington. Congratulations to all of you. But what about this 5th seat for our friends down in Precinct 16? What happens to that seat? Well, there were 2 write-in candidates. We will not get those results tonight. We're going to find out about that later. The 2 candidates, Jessica Ryan and Paul Casey, I met both of them today when I went down and visited Precinct 16. They were outside handing out little tiny fortune cookie sized slips of paper with their name on it, hoping folks would write their name in. One of them will almost certainly be the 5th town meeting member from Precinct 17, and which one, we don't know. I want to also point out that there was another election in Precinct 16 and only in Precinct 16, and that was a special election for the Great and General Court, the Massachusetts House of Representatives, to replace former State Representative Ed Coppinger, who resigned to take a job in the private sector. There were 3 candidates in the Democratic primary, and this is only Precinct 16, West Roxbury, and parts of JP and Roslindale. Those 3 candidates, Billy McGregor, Rob Orthman, and Celia Siegel, one of them will emerge from the Democratic primary today and will almost certainly join me in the House of Representatives, because there are no Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party candidates, or anyone else running. So the winner of the Democratic primary today will almost certainly be elected a month from now. And most of that decision will be made by the good folks of West Roxbury. That's where most of the district is. And so we're not going to spend much more time on that tonight, and we won't get you those results either. What we can do is start going to some of the precincts where we've gotten results in. And we're going to start with where I got my start, all the way in North Brookline. We're going to Precinct 1. And these are the results for Precinct 1, a competitive race and not a surprising outcome. There were 6 candidates. These are the 5 incumbents. They all topped the ticket. Bettina Newefind, Sarah Erickson, Amy Evanson, Carol Hillman, and Rui Albuquerque. Congratulations to all 5 of you, all incumbents, all folks who have been doing the work and will continue doing the work way up in this sort of Cottage Farm, Longwood Mall, Lower Beacon, St. Mary's part of town. So congratulations to you folks in Precinct 1. Let's go to Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is a newly drawn district on both sides of Route 9. And woo, let's see if we can bring you back. There we go. Congratulations to the 5 folks winners here. Incumbents Chris Dempsey, Matt Hyatt, Elizabeth Childs, and Liz Linder, and newcomer Awet Teamy. Congratulations to all of you. You've got what amounts to be a challenging precinct to represent because it's newly drawn, and finding the coalitions that can be built can be challenging. There's different neighborhoods within Precinct 4, stitching them together, representing everyone. I know it's on the mind of these 5, and it's really important, Precinct 4 being one of the 2 majority-minority precincts in town. I want to go next to Precinct 5, located just south of 4. Precinct 5, 3-year term. This is exciting. This is a set of some incumbents, some newcomers who ran as a group. These 5 folks all ran together. And it's interesting that they were, as a group, able to get across the finish line together. And those 5 are incumbent Anthony Flint, incumbent Bonnie Bastian, incumbent Wendy Friedman, and newcomers Wendy Stahl and Carlos Rios. So that's a mix of newcomers and incumbents, but it's 5 folks who ran together. And I think we're starting to see more of that in town, where individual precincts find some cohesion amongst candidates. And it may explain some more of the results today. We're going to take a look. Next, we're going to go to Precinct 6, which is a Pierce community, includes the high school. It's kind of south of Washington for the most part, right? So, but it bleeds over. Congratulations to these 5: Kat Anderson, Marissa Vogt, Patty Correa, Bitsy Perlman, and Clint Richmond. A couple of incumbents. Marissa and Clint, both incumbents. Kat Anderson was a longtime town meeting member. Now we brought her back. She tried to leave. We brought her back. And Patty Correa and Bitsy Perlman, newcomers to town meeting. Patty Correa, not a newcomer to town government and politics. Congratulations to you 5. We're going to go to Precinct 8. Precinct 8 is just south of Com Ave. It's sort of on the right side of the street on Harvard Street as you're heading toward Brighton. And we're going to bring you back over here where you belong. The 5 winners there: John Harris, Alec Leibovitz, Nancy Heller, Eric Stone, and Fran Perler. Again, a mix of incumbents and newcomers. John Harris and Nancy Heller, long time active in politics. Alec Leibovitz won last year, so he won his first re-election. Congratulations to you. And newcomers, Fran and Eric, rounding out the 5. This was a competitive race where we saw folks who were on different slips of paper all come through, not all wearing the same hat. We've got more results to come, but we're going to take a quick break and learn about a big, exciting project that Big has been working on. So let's hear from that and more results in just a few minutes.
My father heard about the New England School of Broadcasting from a coworker while working the night shift at a shipping dock in Stoughton, soon after he served in the Air Force. The fellow there said he was taking classes, and my dad figured he had just as good of a voice for broadcasting, so he went to the New England School of Broadcasting on the GI Bill while working full-time and had a lifelong career in broadcasting and youth development work. It's because of this opportunity that I saw media as something I could do, and frankly, something I felt like anyone could do. I started working in radio at age 16, and I went to school for broadcast journalism. This path created a lifetime of opportunities outside of my small rural town of 400 people in western Maine. I saw the power of media making, and how critical local news and community-based media were to the communities that I've lived in here and across the country, and that the ideas and thoughts and voices of everyone in our community were important and critical to a rich civic life from which everyone could benefit. We're better at solving problems together, and with everyone having access to information and the tools for community growth. I know firsthand, living in communities without a local newspaper or with one local news source, that the community loses when the media ecosystem is not diverse or is filtered through private or corporate interests, especially when that one newspaper up and leaves town and a news desert is left behind. This, of course, has happened in our community and across Massachusetts and across the country. And I also know that BIG's critical coverage of local government meetings, hundreds and hundreds of hours of meetings a year, makes a huge difference to residents in understanding what's going on in our community. And it increases the amount of conversations that are transparent and vigorous. And it focuses our representatives on the issues that matter most to us. That's why we came up with the idea for Civic Brookline, the first ever civic news media outlet here in Brookline, and we think in all of Massachusetts. So Civic Brookline, it's not a newspaper, it's not a television show, and it's not town government, somewhere in between all of those. And our vision for Civic Brookline is that it will be a nonpartisan, curated multimedia news and information website with community calendars and community-wide workshops and explainer content on how the government process works. And it will support a broader ecosystem of accessible, timely, unbiased civic information and more civic news in Brookline. We hope that you'll consider supporting this important effort with your donation and with your subscription to our weekly newsletter, which will arrive every Monday morning. Civic Brookline launches on May 2nd, 2023, and in our first phase will be an aggregate of local news sources, civic information, civic education, and important government news. And it's a project under BIG's umbrella, and it enables the community to have a constant dialogue with itself for many years to come in a wide variety of media formats. Civic Brookline will enable community members to be trained on how that local government process works by creating explainer content, documents, videos, and actual day-to-day documentation of what's happening inside government meetings, not just one long video. And for that effort, we need your help. We're calling on you to participate as a facilitator of this process of our community listening project. We're going to be conducting about 400 conversations with residents about why local media matters, what content and public information is important to you, and how BIG can evolve to support an improved civic news and media ecosystem here in Brookline. We can't wait to hear all of your ideas for how we can make civic information, education, and news more available and broaden that ecosystem. Local media should serve our community, and that's why we've launched Civic Brookline. Join us in building the future of community and civic media in Brookline by emailing us at info@civicbrookline.org to take part in the conversation. Thank you so much from all of us at BIG and Civic Brookline.
Welcome back to a TV on TV special edition. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo. You're watching Brookline Interactive Group. Today is Tuesday, Christmas Day, birthday, election day. They're like the same thing for me. Super excited. We've done some of the results already, both some of the non-contested races and some of the town meeting races. We have more results, and without delay, we're going to go there. We're going to start with Precinct 2. Let's see how we did. Precinct 2, North Brookline near Com Ave. Congratulations to Mark Penzel, David Trevette, Carlos Tamayo, Ariel Seufer, and Bob Miller. That's an interesting group, right? So Mark, David, Carlos, and Bob, if my memory serves me, ran together. Ariel, politically a little far apart from the other four. Mark, David, Carlos, and Ariel, all incumbents. Bob came a few votes short last year in the massive runoff, but had been a long-serving town meeting member. So it's a good mix of incumbents and newcomers, experience, and some new folks. Exciting stuff. Congratulations to you five. We're going to go now to Precinct 3, sort of the Lawrence School neighborhood. And this is not surprising. These are folks who have been around and have been doing the work. Congratulations to topping the ticket, Ann Turner, a newcomer to town meeting, but not a newcomer to Toxteth or to the neighborhood. Has a long time been an advocate. Mac Dewart, love to see you. Joanne Leotoud, Felina Robinson, and Jeff Benson. Ann Turner is the only newcomer with respect to town meeting, certainly not a newcomer to town. Good mix of folks. We're going to go now to precinct 14. Now let's go to 10. Let's go to 10. 10 is my home precinct. Not a surprise. We see again a group of 5 who worked together and gave out a consistent message. And we see them as successful. Ariel Maddox, Suzette Abbott, Kim Lascalzo, all incumbents. Corinne Weaver, Nicole Stevens, newcomers to town meeting. Again, a mix of newcomers and more experienced folks. Also, again, a group of 5 who work together. And I think that is a theme for the day. Next up, we're going to go to precinct 14. That's one of these big ones down here. That's this one, in fact. Let's check it out. 14 has 5 folks and then also a special election. So let's start with the 5. No surprise here. They were, if my memory serves me, running unopposed. Sharon Schaufman, Sherry Mattel, Sammy Zelka, Yukovic Sammy, and Sasan Zelka, all incumbents, all winning re-election. And the votes, not too big a spread. Generally popular, I think. But also, there was a special election for a 1-year seat. 2 folks running for that. We're going to see if we've got results there. Cross our fingers. And here we are. And David Gayshuk came out just ahead of Efrat Ziner-Shabbat, 343 to 310. Now, Dave Gayshuk used to serve in town meeting. He lost his election last year, in part because of redistricting. He was moved to, in some ways, a different part of town. And I say he was moved. He was on the redistricting committee that did the moving. And so congratulations to David for your glorious return to town meeting. Efrat, I'm sure we'll see you again. I know your work is not done. We've got one more precinct we've got results for. Let's take a look. Precinct 17, Coolidge Corner, the intersection of Harvard and Beacon. And this is a good group. This is a group who also worked together, at least somewhat, in some different pairings. Anthony Buono, young, excited. I know he did a ton of work. It's not at all surprising to see him topping the ticket. He put in the sweat. He had the conversations. Great to see some new blood, some enthusiasm, and great to see it when folks work hard, that work is rewarded. Chris Muddy ran for school committee as well. We're going to get that result a little bit later. Isaac Silberberg, Jonathan Klein, and Elizabeth Schaefer. What's interesting about this group is Isaac Silberberg was an incumbent but had lost a town meeting race several years ago. Jonathan Klein, a newcomer, no. He was running as a challenger, but he had been a town meeting member in the past. Similarly, Elizabeth Schaefer lost in the redistricting race last year, and now she's back. And so this is, again, this mix of newcomers and experience, and we're also seeing folks coming back, new again, right? Returning to town meeting. We've got a few more precincts we need to get the results for before we can get you those results and the town-wide. We're more than halfway through the results. I'm going to ask that you stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break and keep working on those results. Stay tuned.
But we're also creating a safe and welcoming space for everyone in the community to be able to come into our space. In fact, we're one of the only physical spaces in the community where you can just come and hang out. You can come talk about your creative ideas. You can learn as a team. You can actually bring your team in and do team building by working on a production all together. Town departments can do that. Community groups can do that. So there's a lot of things that our physical space enables us to do that is really welcoming and inclusive of the community and is utilized by all kinds of different groups in town.
And welcome back to Brookline Interactive Group. I'm Tommy Vitolo. We're doing election night coverage, and as you know, we can only report the results we've got. They don't all come in at the same time. We've about 2/3 through. So what I want to do while we're waiting for a few more results is do a quick recap and very quickly show you what we've already shown you, but we're going to do it in rapid fire. Precinct 1, we have results for. Congratulations, Bettina Newefine, Sarah Erickson, Amy Evanson, Carol Hillman, and Rui Albuquerque. Precinct 2, Mark Penzel, David Trevette, Carlos Tamayo, Ariel Seufer, and Bob Miller. Congratulations to you. We're going to go to Precinct 3, Ann Turner, Mac Dewar, Joanne Leotoud, Felina Robinson, and Jeff Benson. Precinct 4, Chris Dempsey, Matt Hyatt, Elizabeth Childs, Liz Linder, and Owette Teamy. Congratulations to you. We've got a few more precincts, and we're going to go through them again. These are recaps. We've already reported these, but I just want to spend a little time and review them while we wait for the last few results to come in. Precinct 5, Anthony Flint, Wendy Stahl, Carlos Rios, Bonnie Bastian, and Wendy Friedman are the winners, and we'll work through that. Precinct 6, I want to get you the results for. Kat Anderson, Marissa Vogt, Patty Correa, Bitsy Perlman, and Clint Richmond. We don't have Precinct 7 yet. We're working on those. So we're going to skip to Precinct 8. Precinct 8, John Harris, Alec Leibovitz, Nancy Heller, Eric Stone, and Fran Perler. Again, we're doing some reruns while we wait for the last few precincts to come in. We have not gotten 9 yet, so we're going to go to 10. Precinct 10, Ariel Maddox, Suzette Abbott, Kim Lascalzo, Corinne Weaver, and Nicole Stevens. Congratulations to you. The next one we have is Precinct 14. Sharon Schaufman, Sherry Mattel, Sammy Zelka, Yukovitz Sammy, and Sasan Zelka. There was also a 1-year seat. We may have got a wrong photo here. I'm going to double check. Now, that's not a frat. Maybe that is. I think that is a frat. We fixed it. This is a frat. So Dave Gayshuk came out ahead of Efrat Zinner Shavit, 343 to 310. We had the numbers right. We had the names right. We do the best we can here on Brookline Interactive Group. Precinct 16, we have results for. We don't have 15, but we do have 16. And as I mentioned before, you only see 4 names because there were only 4 people on the ballot. Judy Leitner, Deb Abner, David Day, and Michael Harrington. So what happens to that 5th seat, we don't know yet, but we do know that there were 2 write-in candidates, Jessica Ryan and Paul Casey. We're not sure yet who won that race. They've got to count those by hand. That's not the kind of thing we get in our quick gratification society. We've got to let that cook slowly. So we're going to give that a little bit more time. We do have results from Precinct 17, though. Again, we showed those earlier. Tony B., Anthony Buono, Christopher Muddy, Isaac Silberberg, Jonathan Klein, and Elizabeth Schaefer, all victorious. And so what are we waiting for? We are waiting for Precincts 7. I'm going to do 7. Oh, don't touch it. Precinct 7, Precinct 9, Precinct 11, Precinct 12, Precinct 13, and Precinct 15. We need those 6 precincts both to tell you who won the town meeting race, but also we've got to add those results together to find out about the competitive races, Select Board, School Committee 1 year, Housing, and of course, Ballot Question 1, Ballot Question 2A, Ballot Question 2B, and Ballot Question 3. So we're waiting on those, and we're going to ask you to sit tight, and as we get those results, we're going to put oh, breaking news. I've got Precinct 13. Precinct 13 is a big one because there were 10 folks running for 5 seats and 2 folks running for 1 seat. It was in that sense, the most competitive election, the largest number of competitors. And it was another place where we saw 2 groups of 5 effectively running against each other, more or less. And we're going to flip now and see how they did. And this, again, is a phenomenon that we've talked about a little bit on this show already. This group of 5, incumbent Werner Lowy and newcomers Laura Na, Michael Rubenstein, Michael Best, and Dave Mendels, worked together as a group. In fact, a very cohesive group. Their lawn signs had all 5 names. They worked together for months. And Werner's a longtime town meeting member, very experienced. Congratulations to him, working with some newcomers to town meeting, but not entirely to town politics. That's a big win. That's an exciting win. Again, four newcomers in a race where there were 5 incumbents. So there were some folks who have served the town, in some cases for many years, and I hope they will continue to find ways to serve the town. I want to go to the 1-year seat. This is Precinct 13, 1-year seat. And we see a very close race. Jonathan Fine has come out ahead of Kevin McKenzie, 298 to 289. Now, I believe 9 votes is enough distance in a single precinct to feel confident about these results, but I want to be clear about this. It's a good opportunity to bring it up. These are unofficial results. Why are they unofficial? Why don't we know for sure what the count was? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, sometimes a person comes to the ballot booth, they believe they're registered to vote, and they're not in the registration book. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time, it's because they're not actually correctly registered in that location. But every once in a while, they did everything right, and their government failed them in some way. And sometimes we can establish that. And I'll give you a specific example. Last year, a young woman who had moved to Massachusetts went to the RMV, got her driver's license, and Motor Voter registered her. But for whatever reason, that piece of paper didn't make it from the RMV to the Brookline town clerk. And so when she came to vote, folks said, well, wait a minute, you're not registered. She did the right thing. She said, let me fill out a provisional ballot. And if we can prove I'm registered, then my vote will count. Well, it took a few days, and they did just that. Town clerk Ben Kaufman got in touch with the RMV and made them go look, and they found that piece of paper in some file box somewhere, and that young woman's vote was counted, but not on Tuesday night, not until like Thursday or Friday. Another place where you'll see votes come in after election night are folks on active duty. By federal law, only have to get their ballot postmarked by today and have several days, more than a week, for those ballots to arrive. Now, there are not a lot of active duty personnel in any one precinct. They tend not to vote absentee in local elections, and they probably don't all vote for the same person, but it's possible. And so we're calling this race for Jonathan Fine, but I want to be clear, these are unofficial results, and it is certainly possible that result could change. I'm thinking we may be getting some new results in. I'm hearing we've got Precinct 12. I want to go to Precinct 12 and see what's happening with my good friends in Precinct 12. Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 incumbents. So this was a case where the folks who have been there and building the relationships either leveraged those relationships or, quite frankly, folks in Precinct 12 are really happy with Jonathan Abbott, Stephanie Bruce, Michael Burstein, Mike Kushner, and Mazal Jarrett. So congratulations to you 5 for your election in Precinct 12. We're still waiting on a few. We're waiting on Precinct 7, 9, 11, and 15. And when we've got those 4, we'll be able to get to all of those town-wide results. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back for more in just a minute here on Brookline Interactive Group.
Since the pandemic, I think we've really looked back at how we can keep some of the things that we were able to put into place during the pandemic to make sure that democracy is transparent, to make sure that everyone in the community has a voice, that we have more diverse voices at the table, that underrepresented voices are being seen and heard and are in collaboration with BIG to make sure that everyone has a voice in Brookline. Last year alone, we had close to 800 hours of government meetings that we covered in the town of Brookline. And it's not just the meetings that you see our staff at, like select board and school committee and many, many days of town meeting, but it's also the smaller meetings, things like the zoning board, we have been at advisory committee meetings, at subcommittees of the school committee. We're there when the town asks us to cover these meetings because we, the town, and residents of the town are asking to have these meetings be public so that anyone can not only know what happened in the meeting, know who's at those meetings, but also understands the process and what's happening at each of these meetings that's leading to the town making a decision about important topics that are going to affect us today and in the future. Have you ever had an idea to make a TV show or a YouTube video? If you got stuck in the process or need help developing your skills, BIG teaches a wide range of media classes from intro to virtual reality to beginning and advanced Adobe Premiere and After Effects and animation. Check out our upcoming classes on brooklineinteractive.org/classes.
Welcome back to a special edition of TV on TV. This is election night. We've got results. We've been going through the results precinct by precinct for the ones we have, but there's a few that are still out. We still haven't heard from precincts 7, 9. We're getting some in. We've got precinct 11. I want to go to that now. Precinct 11 is Summit Ave. It's that big hill. We've all run it. We've all ridden bikes up it. Some of us have not. Let's go see the results in Precinct 11. Before we go, I will point out that Precinct 11 also has a group of 5 who tend to work together. And let's see if that strategy worked. Sure did. So this group of 5, incumbents and newcomers, David Lowe, Martha Gray, and Jonathan Golden, incumbents, John Hilliard and John Rumpler, newcomers, all 5 worked together, and that work worked out for them. Congratulations to you 5 incumbents and newcomers in joining town meeting, which of course begins a little bit later this month. I've got more results for you. I've got Precinct 9. Precinct 9 is, if you're going north on Harvard Street, loosely speaking, it's the left side of the street. It includes the senior center. Let's go check those results out. And here we are at Precinct 9. This is an interesting mix, right? So this is some newcomers, some long-term town meeting members, and some relatively new incumbents. Let's work the list. Marion Friedman Gerspan, Susan Howards, Lee Birnbaum, Marty Rosenthal, and Judith Vanderkay. What have we got? We've got some longtime incumbents. We've got some new incumbents. And we've got a newcomer to town meeting, Susan Howards. I've known Susan quite a long time. I had a chance to speak with her today. And she does such important work looking out for victims of domestic violence and fighting domestic violence. I don't know how much room there is in town meeting for that issue. It's probably a state and a federal issue more than a bylaw, but delighted to have that kind of advocacy in Brookline town meeting. Congratulations to these 5. I've got Precinct 15. We're going to go there next. That's this big one down here. And again, there was a group of 5 working together. Let's see how they did. And they did. Right, so we've got congratulations to incumbents Jane Flanagan, Benedict Hallowell, and Jim Rourke, and to newcomers Arisa Boy and Julian Fisher. Now these 5, again, work together. And I want to take a moment and point out Jim Rourke. Now Jim Rourke, back in January, took a terrible fall. I spoke with him the other day on the telephone. He's still in the hospital. He had a broken back. He had a broken neck, and he has been recovering ever since. I think he's coming back home soon, and we hope for a speedy recovery, at least the second half. That first half, he spent quite a bit of time in the hospital. But he's been at this a long time. He certainly had supporters enough to finish in the top 5. So congratulations to these 5 incumbents and newcomers in Precinct 15. Now, all we've got left is Precinct 7. And once we get Precinct 7, we're going to have both the town meeting results, but also town-wide results. We went through some of them already, and I'll do a quick recap on the town-wide results we already have. And the reason we have them is because the candidates were unopposed. So school committee, the least pay for the most hours, we had 3 incumbents. They wanted another 3 years. We're grateful for their work. Suzanne Federspiel, Andy Liu, and Mariah Nebrega. You do come into the day. You are going to be here at the end of the day. Congratulations to you. The school committee one-year seat, though, that is competitive, and until we get precinct 7, we won't know. Let's go to the library trustees. Not competitive. Chris Janusalkit, Karen Livingston, and John Margolis, all incumbents. And as we said earlier, they're keeping a low profile at the moment. Newcomer to library, but not to town meeting, Marissa Vogt. Marissa Vogt also won her competitive town meeting seat in precinct 6 this year. So those are the 4 library trustees, 3 incumbents, 1 newcomer. There's another newcomer because there was a special election for a 1-year term. Congratulations to Judith Goldman for winning that seat. And hey, we're waiting. We're waiting for one more precinct, precinct 7. We don't have it until we have it. And when we have it, we'll have the keys to the kingdom. We will have not only the results of precinct 7, but we'll have select board. We'll have the school committee 1-year seat. We'll have the housing seat, and we'll have results of questions 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. And I know folks are excited about those questions. They're excited about these town-wide races. We're so close. And maybe some of those results, 16 out of 17 precincts, are enough to call a winner. But we're not in the business of being the fastest. We're in the business of being fast and being right. And that's why we're going to wait. But it almost looks like we've got it. I'm looking off panel. They're working on it. We're going to take a very, very quick break. We're going to come back. And I think when we come back, we're going to have the last precinct and we're going to have all those town-wide results. So stay tuned. We're coming back in just a minute. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Kathy, Executive Director at Brookline Interactive Group. Did you know that BIG has free weekly after-school programs for youth ages 10 to 18 to learn how to produce content for Brookline Youth by Brookline Youth? Check out our website for more information, brooklineinteractive.org/opendoor-mediamakers. Do you know a person who might be interested in an internship? Maybe it's someone who is in school, after college, or an adult who wants to be a lifelong learner. You can gain valuable hands-on experience at Brookline Interactive Group. You can learn from our fun and supportive staff, and you can be part of an active nonprofit organization with a focus on facilitating community-based dialogue, hyperlocal media, community journalism, and civic engagement. We're looking for interns to work on productions, virtual reality, social media and marketing, fundraising, grant writing, and more coverage of town and government and local events. Check out our website for more information at brooklineinteractive.org/internships.
And we are back, and we have the results for Precinct 7. That's the last precinct, which means not only do we have the town meeting results, we've got town-wide results. Now, everyone at Brookline Interactive Group, they've got out their abacus. They're doing those additions, checking them twice. So we're going to start with Precinct 7. Precinct 7 is sort of split by Harvard Street. It's both sides of Harvard Street, south of Beacon. Pretty dense neighborhood. And this is a mixed group. We see newcomer to town meeting, but certainly not to town, Jessica Stokes, Pat Mayer, John Hebert, Amy Newell, and Mark Levy. Unlike what we've seen in some of the other precincts, this is not a group of 5 who ran together. There was a cohort of 5. Some of them are on this page, but some are not. And so this is a case where you can stand alone as long as you've been doing it and you're doing the work yourself. Congratulations, Jessica Stokes, Pat Mayer, John Hebert, Amy Newell, and Mark Levy. We've done the 17 precincts. And all we need to do now is add the results. And so I'm glancing off to the side to see if we're cleared to give any of those results. They're coming very, very soon. And this is where I wish I knew how to tap dance because we're so close. We're going to take a short break. We've got all 17 precincts in. We're checking it twice. We want to make sure we get it right. We don't want anyone to hear town-wide results that don't stand up to scrutiny. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute.
My father heard about the New England School of Broadcasting from a coworker while working the night shift at a shipping dock in Stoughton, soon after he served in the Air Force. The fellow there said he was taking classes, and my dad figured he had just as good of a voice for broadcasting. So he went to the New England School of Broadcasting on the GI Bill while working full-time and had a lifelong career in broadcasting and youth development work. It's because of this opportunity that I saw media as something I could do, and frankly, something I felt like anyone could do. I started working in radio at age 16, and I went to school for broadcast journalism. This path created a lifetime of opportunities outside of my small rural town of 400 people in Western Maine. I saw the power of media making, and how critical local news and community-based media were to the communities that I've lived in here and across the country, and that the ideas and thoughts and voices of everyone in our community were important and critical to a rich civic life from which everyone could benefit. We're better at solving problems together, and with everyone having access to information and the tools for community growth. I know firsthand, living in communities without a local newspaper or with one local news source, that the community loses when the media ecosystem is not diverse or is filtered through private or corporate interests, especially when that one newspaper up and leaves town and a news desert is left behind. This, of course, has happened in our community and across Massachusetts and across the country. And I also know that BIG's critical coverage of local government meetings, hundreds and hundreds of hours of meetings a year, makes a huge difference to residents in understanding what's going on in our community. And it increases the amount of conversations that are transparent and vigorous. And it focuses our representatives on the issues that matter most to us. That's why we came up with the idea for Civic Brookline, the first ever civic news media outlet here in Brookline, and we think in all of Massachusetts. So Civic Brookline, it's not a newspaper, it's not a television show, and it's not town government, somewhere in between all of those. And our vision for Civic Brookline is that it will be a nonpartisan, curated multimedia news and information website with community calendars and community-wide workshops and explainer content on how the government process works. And it will support a broader ecosystem of accessible, timely, unbiased civic information and more civic news in Brookline. We hope that you'll consider supporting this important effort with your donation and with your subscription to our weekly newsletter, which will arrive every Monday morning. Civic Brookline launches on May 2nd, 2023, and in our first phase will be an aggregate of local news sources, civic information, civic education, and important government news. And it's a project under BIG's umbrella, and it enables the community to have a constant dialogue with itself for many years to come in a wide variety of media formats. Civic Brookline will enable community members to be trained on how that local government process works by creating explainer content, documents, videos, and actual day-to-day documentation of what's happening inside government meetings, not just one long video. And for that effort, we need your help. We're calling on you to participate as a facilitator of this process of our community listening project. We're going to be conducting about 400 conversations with residents about why local media matters, what content and public information is important to you, and how BIG can evolve to support an improved civic news and media ecosystem here in Brookline. We can't wait to hear all of your ideas for how we can make civic information, education, and news more available and broaden that ecosystem. Local media should serve our community, and that's why we've launched Civic Brookline. Join us in building the future of community and civic media in Brookline by emailing us at info@civicbrookline.org to take part in the conversation. Thank you so much from all of us at BIG and Civic Brookline.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you know BIG covers all town select board, school committee, and town meeting events and meetings? But other community events are covered by our volunteer crew. Would you like to see more community coverage of local events, government meetings, and town content? Join our volunteer crew at BIG and get trained to help our community have more local access on Brookline's community cable channels. Visit our website, www.brooklineinteractive.org, or email info@brooklineinteractive.org to find out how you can become a member and get involved.
And why am I dancing? I bet you know why. We've got town-wide results. We've double-checked them. We're bringing them to you. And we're not screwing around. We're getting right into it, and we're doing them in the order they appeared on the ballot. So we're going straight to the top. We're going to the select board. I heard it was close. Let's find out. For select board, the two winners are incumbent John Van Scoyak and newcomer to the select board, but not to town, Paul Warren. Pretty close numbers there, and I'm understanding that Arden Reamer was in the mix. Don't have final confirmation on that yet. These numbers are what we've got for the select board winners, and we're going to get them on the horn in just a few minutes and check in with both incumbent and re-elected select board member John Van Scoyak and new to the position Paul Warren. We're going to get them on Zoom and chit-chat, but not until we get to those other races. We want to check out the school committee one-year seat. Remember, that's two folks running for one seat. And here we go. Natalia Linos has prevailed over Chris Muddy. 6,500 votes is a good chunk. That was not as close a race, I think, but we'll read all about that tomorrow. In the meantime, congratulations for Natalia for being our newest school committee member. That's a one-year seat. If you don't like it, you only suffer for a year, but if you love it, you get to run for re-election, and the voters will figure that out. The last town-wide race we got to work is housing. And housing, incumbent Susan Cohen has prevailed over challenger Kimberly Richardson. That was kind of a low, under-the-radar race. Really interesting if you got into the details. Two very different candidates with different skill sets arguing that they would make the better housing commissioner. Incumbent Susan Cohen prevailed. Congratulations to you, Susan. Now we're going to go to the 4 ballot questions. I haven't seen the answers. You haven't seen the answers. Let's find out. I got to confirm one more time. We're good to go to the ballot questions? Are we good to go?
Yes.
We're going. We're doing it. We're going to start with question 1. Question 1, of course, was the debt exclusion on Pierce. Yes or no? Survey says yes. And it was a close vote. 62-33 to 59-17. Not close enough for a recount. Not close enough that our outcome is in doubt. Congratulations to the Yes for Brookline team. Spent Smart Brookline, you worked hard. You made a good showing. I have no doubt that this outcome, as close as it is, will influence how our town thinks about building projects in the future. And to that end, it's a great example of why sometimes going to the voters improves our process. Congratulations to Yes. Congratulations to Pierce. We're going to go to 2A next. Question 2A was the ballot question to permanently increase taxes to pay for services. If you want good things, you got to pay good money. The question is, did the voters want to pay their good money for the good things? And the answer is yes, they did, overwhelmingly. And that doesn't surprise me. The action in the money questions was in question 1. That was where there was an active opposition. There was not as big or any formal opposition to question 2, perhaps. So 2A won as well. And that's going to pay for not only some things we're already paying for that were on the chopping block, but also expand into some new areas, including the thing that my children are most excited about, but also a few friends of mine who live in senior housing, and that's the bookmobile. which will bring books to folks who can't get there otherwise. It's a small part of a really important package of spending, and we're going for it. Question 2B is not just Shakespearean. It's about compost. It's about food for worms. We're going to find out how it did. I understand it was very close. It fell short by 54 votes. And what that means is that there will be no change to the way that we do our trash and recycling collection if you're on town services. You can still compost in your backyard. You can still compost, I believe it's part of a pilot program with the town. I compost in the backyard, so I'm not certain. And of course, if you have private composting service, either as someone who's on town trash or someone who's on private trash, that remains an option. There's no doubt there will be more composting in the future, but it won't come as a result of question 2B. Finally, the last question before we take a break and come back to chat with John Van Scoyak and Paul Warren, the select board winners. We're going to get to question 3, which was whether or not to cap the number of cannabis retail licenses at 4 or to allow it to go to its current total of 5. There are currently 3 active and 1, as you might say, spoken for. Let's see how Q3 did. It turns out an active yes campaign was persuasive. The folks who were active in the yes campaign, I thought, did a really nice job communicating a clear message and running a solid ground game. And so, yes, we will restrict the number of retail cannabis licenses to 4. There are currently 3 retail stores operating. I don't think you will necessarily sense a change in your day-to-day. This is one of those things that the impact will take a little bit of time, and I think, the impact is pretty modest. Congratulations to folks who worked hard on passing question 3. And so we've done it. We've gone through 17 precincts. We've covered 88 town meeting members, 17 times 5 plus 3 special elections. We talked about all of those winners, some of them several times. Congratulations to everyone who ran for town meeting. We also covered all of the town-wide races. Folks who are really investing significant time in both the campaign and then for the winners in governing. And of course, we talked about our 4 ballot questions, 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. 1 and 2A were the big nuts of money. They passed. 2B, more modest, not as high a priority for the voters. And question 3, to scale back on cannabis a bit, was successful. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a break. I'm going to get a sip of water. We're going to rearrange the studio. And when we come back, we're going to have conversations with both incumbent select board member and re-elected member John Van Scoyak and new to the select board, Paul Warren. So stay tuned. We'll be right back as soon as we rearrange the furniture. And I think we're back. We're back, and we've got, if we can cut to the camera, we have Amy Evanson and Paul Warren coming at us live from Hamilton's Restaurant. Amy and Paul, how you doing? Well, we've got the visual, but we don't have the audio. What they're Here we go. How about it? We'll try it. Amy, Paul, welcome to the show.
Can you hear us now, Tommy?
Hey, we can. Hey, listen, I want to start by congratulating Amy on a hard-fought race for town meeting, the star of the show. Paul, you're a good man for supporting her and helping her live her dreams to be a town meeting member in Precinct 1.
Thanks, Tommy. Proud to serve.
I do want to spend a minute, though. We've got just a few seconds left. Paul, congratulations. You set your mind to win this race. I watched you campaign. You were diligent and deliberate. I know you spoke with lots of folks, some of whom agree with you an awful lot, some of whom don't agree with you all the time. You put in the work. The results showed. Congratulations.
Thanks, Tommy. You know, I want to say thank you to both John and Arden. You know, it was a remarkable experience for me personally to be involved in a campaign that was positive, that was issues-based, and just the collegiality on all of the debates, you know, gives me hope for Brookline's future about how we can work together. And I'm really thankful that I was able to campaign alongside them. And I thank them for their hard work. I congratulate John for his result, and I thank Arden. Arden is a remarkable individual. She has passion and ideas and hope is really important. And I just want to thank her, and I hope and I expect that she's going to be involved extensively in town meeting and our government going forward, and I look forward to working with her.
Now we saw in the precinct level results, which you may not have seen yet, we saw a good number of progressive candidates win in places where they hadn't before. Folks where you would have expected to see wind in the sails of Arden Reamer, which means you connected with at least some of them, right? That's how the Venn diagram has to play. And so clearly you've got some appeal broadly across town. Tell us about the things that you talked about that you think are a base for a successful 3-year seat on the select board.
So, Tommy, I think that what transcends all groups and advocacy groups and individuals is a willingness to listen, to take an understanding of the other side, and to find common ground. And I think that those that don't always agree with me, that voted for me, is because they see an individual who can bring people together. And for Brookline to move forward and make the progress that we need to make, we need to bring people together. And that's what I think they saw in me, and that's what I think they voted.
Now, select board members work on problems big and small, on things mundane and sexy. What are some of the things where you're hopeful that you'll be a leader on the select board? You'll be either setting the vision or really doing the lifting. Where are places where we should expect to see Paul Warren as being out front for our 5-person select board?
Sure. So, Tommy, as you know, I've spoken at length about this. If it wasn't for income-restricted Section 8 housing, I would not live in Brookline. It's what gave me my start. It allowed me to be educated, to lift myself out of poverty. And so I am going to be a strong advocate and continue to be a strong advocate to maximize as much income-restricted housing as we can get. You know, we have a great gift before us, and it's the MBTA Communities Act. And we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create a significant amount of income-restricted housing that will help us retain and grow middle-income and low-income housing and residents in Brookline. And without that, we're going to quickly become a community of rich and poor. And I believe that would be devastating for our community going forward. And in order to make sure that we're diverse, both racially and economically, we need to stay very focused on making sure that we build more affordable income restricted housing.
Paul, did you have any surprises today? Did you meet someone? Did you hear a story? Did you learn something new? Tell us about something that happened today that maybe you weren't expecting 24 hours ago.
You know, Tommy, I stood out in the rain for hours to speak with people, and I think the thing that surprised me most was how many people came out in the rain. How many people, you know, braved the cold. It was not fun out there today. I saw you were there a few times, braving the rain. And, you know, I think that the passion of Brookline voters, I hope it becomes contagious, because we need to certainly increase the number of voters that are coming out. But those voters that showed up, that took the time in the rain and the cold to stop and talk with me, to hear my story, and be willing to listen and vote based on a conversation at that moment walking up to the polls. I hope that we continue to keep open minds in Brookline that way going forward, not only with the voters, but in town meeting and on the select board as well.
Well, Paul, congratulations again. I know you've got some friends and family over at Hamilton's. I want to give you the opportunity to spend time with them and spend money at that local business. Amy, get a good look at Paul. You won't be seeing much of him in the next 3 years, so enjoy that time together. Again, Paul Warren, winner of one of the 2 select board seats up this year. Congratulations on all of your work, and I look forward to working with you over the next 3 years.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Have a good evening.
We've also got, I hope, we've got John Van Scoyak teed up. He was the other winner tonight. Of course, John, an incumbent, and topped the ticket. John is hanging out at Washington Square Tavern, another great local business. Are we able to get John on? I think we are. John, turn your camera sideways, turn your phone sideways, and we'll get the full view of you. He's working on audio. He can't hear us. Now he can hear us. John, if you can hear us, turn your phone 90 degrees so we can get the big, broad view of you. There you are.
I have so much to learn, Tommy.
It looks like you're hanging out in Washington Square, just outside Washington Square Tavern, and you got a smile on your face. Congratulations, John. You topped the ticket. You, I think, made it clear that your newsletter is awfully popular.
Well, I like that you brought that into the conversation so quickly. I've told people time and again that the smartest thing I did since I got elected to the select board is to put out that newsletter. And I won't go into any of the dumb things I've done, but that newsletter filled a void that exists in Brookline. People are hungry not just for news of what's going on with the select board and with all of the departments in town, but they're also very hungry for a better understanding of how their town government works. And given my background as a journalist and my interest in Brookline government and my love of the town, I just thought this would make sense. I'm going to be a journalist, not for hire, but you're going to get my news from town hall, you know, whether you ask for it or not. And if you don't want it, you can just say no. And we're now up to 1,000 people who are getting this weekly newsletter.
Now, John, your 2 opponents, Arden Reamer and Paul Warren, seem to get out there before you. And folks were wondering, like, is John in it to win it? Or what's going on? Was this some grand strategy to come into the race a little bit later? Or were you just real busy doing the work as a select board member? Tell us about the race itself and how you feel like, how it went, and maybe if you've got some insight, why you think it went for you.
You know, people might be shocked to hear this, but after 3 years of serving on the select board, you have to really think hard as to whether this is something that you can sort of summon the commitment and the energy and the time to do again. And you might also slide into taking certain things for granted. So before I go any further, I want to congratulate Paul Warren on second place and just an excellent contest that lit a fire under me, and Arden Reamer the same. And Arden, I know what it's like not to prevail in an election contest, and now I know tonight what it's like to finish first. Finishing first feels better, but finishing third in a two-person contest or three-person contest for 2 seats is not the end of the world. And I look forward to Arden's participation in the town government in the days ahead.
John, you've certainly got experience on the board, and I wonder, do you have any advice for Paul, not because he's Paul, but simply because he's a newcomer to the board? As a newcomer to the board, what does one need to be thinking about to be effective, to avoid the pitfalls and the potholes?
Well, Paul, to give him all the credit he deserves, has already proven he's a pretty skillful guy when it comes to crafting articles for town meeting, and when it comes to gathering the support for articles that cover complex issues. So I won't even pretend to give Paul any advice on that score. I will tell him that a significant percentage of having a good experience on the select board has to do with relationships with your fellow select board members, and being able to disagree without being disagreeable, as they say, and also to find the areas where you agree and then produce something as a result of that. Produce a good result for the town on the areas where you agree. And at all times, don't lose your sense of humor, and don't lose your perspective on life. We take things pretty damn seriously in Brookline, and I think sometimes we all get a little bit overly excited about our position on an issue, and we drive it home a little bit hard. But at the end of the day, we're all working for the same thing. We want the town to be as good for the future residents of the town as it has been for us. And it's been a pretty damn great town for all of us.
Now, John, one last question for you. As I said, you've got seniority on the board. You're not the most senior, but you've been there a while. Are there areas, topics, policies, concerns where you're really looking to be a leader amongst the board in the next 3 years, either in terms of a thought leader or rolling up the sleeves and getting the work done? Where are areas in town government and politics where we expect to see, or should expect to see, John Van Scoyak at the tip of the spear?
Tommy, that's an easy one for me, and the answer is climate change. And I want to thank Climate Forward Brookline for their endorsement in the campaign. It was an extremely important one, and I felt, to be a little bit boastful for at least 1 minute here, I felt that I had more than earned it by fighting for the policies that they have been pushing, and fighting for them at town meeting and fighting for them on the select board. And I'm going to do that even more so in the second term, because without any doubt at all in my mind, I think that has got to be the #1 issue, not just for me personally, but for the town. And I hope to persuade people to make that Brookline's #1 priority, not just my #1 priority.
John, congratulations again. I want to thank you for the 3 years you've put in on the select board. You've got many years on advisory and in other avenues. I'm delighted for you. We'll get another 3 years of work out of you, and a hard-fought victory topping the ticket. The day is yours.
It feels good, Tommy. And when you said one more question, I thought you were going to say, will you ever learn to give a short answer? But
oh, I know the answer to that one.
Tommy, you do a good job with these election shows, so keep it going.
Thanks so much. Keep running, and we'll have something to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, that was John Van Scoyak, one of the 2 winners in the select board race. We heard earlier from Paul Warren. And we're at the end of the night. Before I give my closing monologue, though, I do want to note we've got one more race I just heard about. Folks may know Precinct 16 is part of the 10th Suffolk District in the Great and General Court, and they had a primary today. There's no Republican on the ballot. There were 3 Democratic candidates. 2 have conceded. And so we know that Bill McGregor of West Roxbury will be the next representative of West Roxbury and parts of JP and Roslindale. And Precinct 16, Putterham Circle, in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. So Representative-elect McGregor, delighted for you to join the body. I look forward to working with you on issues that affect both the community of Brookline and our Commonwealth. Congratulations to you. Folks, you've seen the results, you've heard the interviews, and you're still here. Thank you. I hope that you'll hear me out for just a few minutes before going to bed and waking up with renewed optimism. This show wouldn't be possible without a long list of people. Thank you to our guests, Kathy Bisbee of Brookline Interactive, Sam Mintz of Brookline.News, Chaz Carey of the town of Brookline, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, and Select Board race winners Paul Warren and John Van Scoyak. Thank you, Katie Liebert, Emma Staff, Dave Robertson, and all of the result runners. Most importantly, thank you to Brookline Interactive Group. The big staff and the TV on TV team put in hundreds of hours to bring you this show. And if you're watching this, you've likely watched a select board meeting or a school committee meeting or an advisory committee meeting or a town meeting on television or online made possible by Brookline Interactive. And so I'm so grateful for their support. This was an exciting election with competitive townwide races, many competitive town meeting races, and several ballot questions, as well as that state rep primary down in Precinct 16. Campaigns in Brookline have grown more sophisticated, with lawn signs sprouting everywhere, increased spending, and clever new ways to try and reach voters. This May's town meeting will, for the first time since November 2019, be held fully in person at the Brookline High School, though hybrid town meeting is on the horizon. Pierce will be torn down post-haste, or at least after the February 2024 spring break. And a new Pierce will rise like a phoenix from the ashes. To the people whose names did not appear on the big board tonight, thank you. Running for office, putting your whole self out there is not easy. I'm grateful that you believe in Brookline enough to have run for office. And please know that your efforts were not for naught. Democracy relies on candidates like you. And to those incumbents who weren't able to get over the finish line, or those who simply retired, thank you for your hours and hours of effort. To the people whose names I did announce tonight, filling those 100 positions, congratulations on your win. Enjoy the evening and then get some rest. We've got one heck of a year coming up with significant challenges on schools, housing and development, transportation, social services, and more. We'll need all you've got, and we'll need you to do it together. There's an alphabet soup of organizations here in town politics, and none of them have a monopoly on good ideas or on town meeting members. Furthermore, town meeting isn't Congress with a speaker and a minority leader and whips and rhetoric to match. So please, leave the clever quips of Twitter and the drama of Facebook behind. Reach outside of your WhatsApp group or your knitting group. Put your phone down and lean in. Really listen to others. And don't forget to say hello when an unfamiliar face appears as you grab coffee or a cookie in the Brookline High School cafeteria. Brookline, you're a great town, and I'm so proud to be a part of you. From all of us at Brookline Interactive Group, good night, and, well, good luck.
can community media organizations like BIG help fill the void of community news? And we're doing exactly that. We're looking for state funding. Thanks to the help of Representative Vitolo, we have an appropriations that is going before the state legislature to ask them for $10 million to support the 200 community media centers across the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, in order for them to continue doing this good work, but also to evolve to the next level of media. So with our fundraising efforts, we also have to evolve. We have to be more willing to ask folks in our community to help support this work by becoming a member. You can become a member of BIG for $50 to $100 a year, depending on whether you're a Brookline resident or you live outside of our community. If you're a senior or a student, you can sign up for $30 a year. But really what we need more than ever is folks who are willing to give a recurring monthly donation on Patreon, on PayPal, via Venmo, or on Square, so that we have sustainable funding for BIG once those cable fees, which are in decline, go away entirely. So I'd like to ask you personally, from our organization to you directly, would you be willing to be there for BIG in 2023? Thank you so much for watching this program this evening. We're so glad that you're here. We'd love for you to be here this year, so please come in and make your media matter at Brookline Interactive Group.